Okay, I want to say one or two things and then I ask a question. My name is Wilma Malka. I have run for many different positions in this state. How many people know my name? Okay. I come from College Station, Arkansas, and that's where I started working in my community and came up through my community, served 30 years in the Pulaski County School District, and ran for Justice of the Peace back in 1992, 94. Then ran for the state legislature, served 6 years there, as long as they would let me stay there. Now I'm a new JP. I go to a lot of conferences and a lot of whatever we got going on. But when you leave here, what is the plan? What are you going to do when you leave this meeting today? What is our plan? Panelists, moderator. Are we going to go back and ask the churches? Most information come out of the church, at least they do in my community and in the communities where I represent. Are we going to go back and say we are going to get those people, start getting them involved rather than what they may not do? I work on I can, I will, and it can be done. And I have not seen the Black Caucus in any of the races that I ran. Maybe Mrs. Abrams. 1996, 202. I was a state legislator. My second term there, I was the only black woman in the legislature. You know how I felt? It was not good. But all I'm saying is when we leave here, we ought to have some plan.
That's right.
We ought to have something that we're going to go back and do, rather than we had a good time at this meeting today. And my question is, what is that plan? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And I'll just say real briefly, as you posed it to me as a moderator, on Wednesday of this week, I sat in a room with 15 Republicans. As our Speaker of the House invited a handful of us to a backroom session that began to talk about how we could leverage Democrat and Republicans meeting a consensus in the legislature. Likely felt the same way you did when you served. I asked the same exact question: what's the plan when we leave? The answer he posed to me is the same answer I'll pose to you all this evening, is sit down with someone else. Challenge an individual that's sitting next to you. If there is a plan, if there is work to be done. I got up from my seat afterwards, went in the corner with 3 other Republicans, took their phone numbers down, asked them what I could do to start bridging the gap in order for us to make things work. I think it's critically important, outside of the conversations we have in these panels or in other organizations and networks, if you're going to work with someone, don't be afraid to go to them and ask them questions. And then after you've asked them questions, don't be afraid to challenge them. Ms. Dobbins calls me very often, and when she calls, it's usually telling me that she's got some work for me to do. And it may not be the same work, but I'm never turning that work down. So I would soon challenge each of you in the audience to speak with us as panelists, to speak with me as your legislature, to put me to work, to ask questions, to advocate on your behalf, to come down to your hometown to help campaign on behalf of the caucus. But I don't know until the conversation started. And I don't think any of us know what the complete plan is or the strategy is, but it takes conversation and communication to get that started. Panelists? Any of you?
The only thing I would add real quick is I would strongly encourage the Black Caucus to maybe empower their officers or form a committee to figure out, what do you want to happen in 2014? Do you want to add 3 seats in the House? Do you want to add a Senate seat? Do you want to have a candidate for Congress? But figure that out now, as opposed to waiting and then seeing who runs, and then you can do what you can. But I would maybe have a targeting team to figure out what you want to accomplish as a caucus and lay out a plan for that now.
Young lady?
My question is, you all mentioned about voter education and getting people out to do volunteer. How do you make that a personal issue when, in my case, or people that I'm familiar with, they're in survival mode and it's dinner on the table, get the kids home, do the homework, So how can I convince, or what would be the obstacle to get beyond that so that they can come out and volunteer?
I recommend always start with your family. My family is politically astute because they have been involved. They've had to campaign, they've had to go, they've had to answer the phone. Your baby has been, my baby has been answering phones ever since they were 6 years old in campaign. So they know what it means to be politically involved. Start with your family. Next, into your family reunions and those kinds of things. You become the panelists of how do you make democracy work.
Chairman Jones?
I think it's important that, you know, that's most people's situation. I spent a few years working for the city of Arkadelphia as a director of research and grants, assistant to the city manager. And one of the things that the city manager used to tell me all the time was that most people are not concerned. It's like a group such as this. The number one concern in the city is their garbage picked up and is their water clear. But beyond that, they're not concerned. But what we have to do is make sure that when we're out campaigning, when we're out talking about these things, that we make sure to a person that is in survival mode, that we help them understand how important Obamacare is, how important it is that we be a part of Medicare expansion, that this is a real issue for you, that it's serious, that it's just as important to your survival as those things that you're concerned about immediately when you leave work, and try to make sure that you take care of your children and your family. If people don't feel like those things are important, those big wigs, they'll just make the decisions and I just have to make it from day to day. We have to make sure we connect with people on a personal level. And I think it just goes back to everything that's been stated so far, that if you don't have a personal connection and that you're not trying to understand people where they are and the problems that they have, then we won't be able to be effective and people won't be concerned. So it's really up to leaders of the party and leaders of the caucus to make sure that we are making that connection and help people to understand that the things that are going on in the State House are just as important to your survival as it is the meal that you'll prepare on that day.
And I think coming into this next legislative session, you know, fighting like heck about the voter identification law proposal that's coming, that is going to create a new obstacle to participation in the process, and the folks who are going to be hit the hardest are the working poor. So that's a place to start, is to stop that new obstacle from being created in the coming months.
Ma'am?
Yes. I want to say this much. First of all, I will introduce myself. I'm Lily McMullen, and Ms. Walker, you know I know your name, but I mean what you said really did touch me. I felt that. I really felt it deeply, because many times, I mean, you know, we feel that on different layers. It's so many layers of that loneliness that we do find ourselves in. Also, I want to say this, Ms. Abrams, you talk so elegantly. I can't match that.
Yes, you can.
You used the word courage. I can relate to that. I have a lot of respect for it. Now, I have the courage to say what I really do think here. And I don't think it's all that complicated. But what I do want to point out is that all of your ideas are just really good ideas. They have weight and they have merit and they matter and they can make a difference. They have to come together collaboratively. There is one main thing, though, that we need to look at that is a fact, and that is the redistricting. Redistricting has already taken place, and that's going to last for the next decade. Redistricting will see to it that when it comes to our having a United States representative who looks like me, or a United States senator who looks like me, would probably require a person who wears a cape, who's a super person, if they're African. That is the truth of the matter. Another thing is this. What I want to point out is we talk about democratic issues, campaign like a Democrat. We also talked about rural, that is demography. When we talk about campaigning like a Democrat and how President Obama campaigned like a Democrat this time, true he did. Okay, and we talk about demography in terms of Arkansas and being such an agrarian state. Also, as we know, Arkansas is not a wealthy state, it happens to be a very poor state. All of those issues that Obama campaigned on were issues that you would think the majority, the vast majority of the Arkansas population, citizenry, would be able to relate to and embrace. That didn't happen. Why? It wasn't because of the rural factor. How many other presidents who were Republicans would have to not be any more representatives of a rural section in society than Obama? Now, I do know, Ms. Barth, that you probably have some more details there, but just in general, I could certainly not see Romney being more embraceable by people who live in a more rural society based upon his ideology and what he was pushing than President Obama and what he was pushing.
True.
So therefore, I want to say that when we talk about campaigning like a Democrat, that doesn't necessarily work for us here in Arkansas. So the bottom line has something to do with racism, and that's what we'll have to face. All righty? And that is the thing that once we face that, then we'll know what move to make. So therefore, I'm thinking that since redistricting has been set, and that will omit us from being able, more likely, I'm not going to say able, but it certainly makes the challenge much more great for us to actually be a winner, let's say, a senator, United States senator from Arkansas, or to carry the position of a representative. Because I do know also when we talk about Joyce Elliott, who ran for that United States representative seat, she was very sharp and very knowledgeable. And also, that seat was wide open. So the chance of someone, one of us, getting it and is the incumbent there is even more minute. But even if one of us did run again, we could not run any better than Joyce did. But I think that one of our long-term goals would be to define the issue for the next 10 years. Issue definition. The dialogue, I think, would need to go toward making sure that we focus on the importance of redistricting so that we will be in that group and can be represented. We are not supermen. We are not superwomen. It is not fair for us to carry the whole group. So I just think we have to admit that.
Thank you for your comments. At this time, this concludes our panel. I would like for Mr. Rizal Aaron to please come forward and offer up closing remarks on behalf of our president, Casey Somerville. It's been an honor and a distinct privilege to be able to serve as a moderator.
Again, let's give the panelists and the moderator another big hand. On behalf of Casey Somerville and the Arkansas Democratic Black Caucus, of course, we appreciate everything that was brought forth today. And we need to make it a point to implement the suggestions and ideas that were presented today. Just a few minor things, and we're going to get ready to get out of here, including announcements. One thing is Justice Walker brought something to my attention, and I greatly appreciate that. I'm always open to correction. And I want to acknowledge the local officials that run in nonpartisan races, because they are just as important as any other race in the state. And so let's